Welcome back. Let's catch you up on a couple stories that should be on your radar today. It's time for Rapid Fire, and here to break down the headlines are Bill Griffith, Leslie Picker, and Robert Frank. First up, the streaming wars. Look at Roku. Those shares down 12% again today after Comcast, our parent company, announced it'll give its Xfinity Flex streaming box to people for free who only pay for internet. This after Dish chairman Charlie Ergen yesterday said streaming is, quote, going to be a bit of a bloodbath for a while as companies load up on content and undercut distributors.
We're in land rush time.
And 14% now for Roku.
How many streaming services have been announced at this point? I've lost count.
Everybody has.
I wrote
Match
this down.
Tinder announced
At least
one.
a half a dozen.
Apple TV Plus. This is just within the last few weeks. Apple
But
TV
I mean,
Plus.
overall.
Because at least half a dozen.
Well, my point is, how many is any one person going to want to
So
subscribe to?
what they're saying now is the average, the max will be around 3. 3, maybe 3.5.
Like any industry, we keep saying it's going to be 3 or 4.
Right.
You see
So
the
there's going to be a
consolidation to that
shakeout.
number in
And
every industry.
the economics are moving in the opposite direction of what shareholders want. So costs are going up. We saw Big Bang Theory. We saw Seinfeld, each fetching more than $500 million.
Which I think is hilarious. Shows that are 10 years old, 15 years old, are making this kind of
dough. Because they're good, Bill, because they used to make good TV.
No young people are going to start watching Seinfeld.
So you got that happening, but then you've got the cost of these things, which, Disney's going to be $6.99. We started with Netflix at $12.99. All these other folks with ad-supported services, Apple will be free when you have an Apple device. So the stuff is going down in cost for consumers, going up in terms of their price for what it costs to get content.
Right.
As John Ford said, whoever holds their breath the longest will win here.
For Leslie, Robert, for everybody, the deals that are going to happen in this space as this consolidates to 3 or 4 is going to be insane to watch over the next. Could be 3 to 5 years.
It's going to be a bloodbath.
Hopefully.
Someone said that.
I guess so.
Moving right along. Facebook is now going to have its own Supreme Court. That's what Mark Zuckerberg is calling it. The company released plans for a new governing body that'll handle controversial content on its website. This independent entity, guys, is going to make binding decisions on content moderation.
It's about time, don't you think? Shouldn't they have done something like this when they started the company?
They should hire an editorial staff from a Wall Street Journal, people who used to work in that kind. I mean, that's effectively what they're acknowledging is you need human editors of the news process.
You do, but here you've got 1 billion people creating content. So this is a company that's always kind of seen themselves on the cutting edge of technology. Talked about the partnership with Luxottica and the idea of, a couple years from now we'll see
why they're coming out with
Facebook
goggles
glass.
Again.
I don't know what it's actually called, but
did anybody not groan at that announcement?
Yeah.
Are you excited?
Although I will say,
I groaned.
as someone who wears glasses, if I could get a pair of glasses that would tell me the name of everybody I'm looking at immediately, so I would never forget their name, that would be great.
And you trust Facebook with that information.
Totally.
Yeah.
But I think one of the biggest issues they're going to have is that they've said that they want to make all of these different moderation conversations public in the spirit of transparency and making sure everyone's aware of kind of what this board does.
What could go wrong?
But then you also have to kind of couple that with user privacy and the fact that users will be raising complaints. They may not want to draw attention to themselves, but
I think you're right.
Very public
Who would want to be on this thing?
Of people.
Who would want to do this impossible job? Everybody's going to hate you. Everybody's going to say you're doing a terrible job because no matter what you decide,
it'll be
something
prestigious. He's already calling it the Supreme Court. It's going to be, such and such from the Journal and the Times and all these former journalists, and then they're going to go
It's just
beyond this.
another example of how they've lost control of their product.
Exactly.
But will they wear robes? Most importantly,
it's an important question.
Do they get the outfit to go with the title?
Wigs. Next up, this year's crop of IPOs are officially the least profitable set of companies since 1999. Kate Rooney is here with
Look who's here.
From CNBC.com. So we've talked a lot about some of the high-profile ones who've stumbled lately. Yes. The Ubers, the Lyfts, the WeWork, we've talked ad nauseum. But overall, this really is now a banner year in a bad way.
It is. And of the companies going public this year, 24% are predicted to be profitable. So the average over about 2 decades is usually like 50%. It's very low, lowest level since 2000. And we've talked about the Uber and the Lyfts of the world. Goldman Sachs had this data out and said it's really actually not Uber and Lyft. It's the biotech companies that are the culprits.
Oh, interesting.
So of those guys going public, none of them are expected to be profitable for the next 3 years, which is huge.
And yet, the performance, by the way, this is where there's also an interesting disconnect. Just because you're unprofitable doesn't mean you're not going to be rewarded in the public markets. It's just that we've seen some business models get chucked out the window. So biotech companies, investors seem to be they seem to give them a longer leash and say, okay, we understand why you're not profitable. Maybe you have an exciting drug in the pipeline or something like that, as long as there's some idea that the core business model isn't broken.
Right. They have clinical trials, so they're a completely different business model, and people expect them to spend way more than a ride-hailing company, for example. So that's a huge part of it. But David Kostin, who came out with this note this week, said that year 3 is really the banner year. It's not the first year of profitability.
Right.
Investors will say, okay, you've got a year, you've got 2 years. If you're not making money by year 3, you are almost guaranteed to underperform. They use the Russell as the benchmark. So.
Wow. So here we are, the most anticipated IPO year since the dot-com boom, and it's the least profitable one. What does that say? What are we saying here then?
Well, there's only been 70 IPOs compared to as far as volume, it's way below the 400 a year for 6 years straight that we saw in the dot-com boom. Wow. So I think it goes back to that conversation of profitability that we talked about with WeWork. Investors are rethinking, do we want to go for the companies that are really, spending a lot and just getting users, or should we think about maybe, okay, year 3, look at this company and say, is this a 3-year problem, or in 5 years you're still not making money? That's probably a sign that they'll underperform.
Kate, before you go, how would you spell whoa if I said, whoa, that's a crazy stat?
Whoa. W-O-A-H.
Oh, she's so
kids today.
Kids. Whoa, is that, that's...
Is data plural or singular?
The AP style. It's...
Plural.
Well, now it's plural, but singular.
Ms. Rooney, we'll let you go.
Thank
All
you,
right.
Kate.
As we delve into this next one, thank you very, very much.
Passed,
Okay.
yes.
Kate Brody of
See
you later.
CNBC.com, and here's why we bring it up. Merriam-Webster is adding more than 500 new words to the dictionary. Some make sense. Like they've said, haircut now should add that it references a business move. Others don't really make sense. I'm not kidding. They're adding vacay, sesh, pickleball. All right, pickleball.
Pickleball.
But dad joke and escape
Yeah, what is a
room,
dad joke anyway?
which are
Do I wanna know?
phrases. And why is not words?
Why does a dad joke have its own dad? I mean, dad joke is a great joke by nature.
What about a mom joke?
It doesn't
right,
need an
where is the dad
explanation.
joke?
So
Dad bod.
these dictionaries have become, I think, such a joke that the Scrabble dictionary being the worst offender, all they do is throw any possible letter combination out there into the Scrabble dictionary. So when we play at home, I said we need a better arbiter of what's really a word or not. So we ordered a 1985 dictionary.
Where did you find that?
On
Why
eBay or
85?
eBay, did you?
my birth year. It felt like,
I was like, is that before vacay started becoming a real word? Or
and
something?
yes. So this is what it's come to. I got to turn the clock back 30 plus years.
I'm with you. However, I studied linguistics in college, and I'm I don't want to say a fan. I don't know how to characterize it, but I'm aware of the evolution of language. And it evolves. And, we don't speak Old English anymore. We don't speak Middle English anymore.
Right.
We speak this
And millennials
English
don't
that
even speak
continues
English
to evolve. Yeah, exactly.
But there's a classic.
So it does drive me crazy when I see woe spelled W-O-A-H.
Yeah.
Nothing
So-
against Kate, but and data is a plural word for
Absolutely.
datum, right?
Correct.
As it should be.
And by the way, there's a long-standing kind of debate about how quickly we should evolve to include new words. It involves Brian Garner and David Foster Wallace and goes back at years and so forth. But this week in the Wall Street Journal, there is a great article, if you haven't seen it yet, about how the usage of woe, spelled W-O-A-H, is increasing because young people say that's how they want to spell it. Direct quote from the story about this. Sam Nitkin, a 19-year-old sophomore at the University of Chicago, says, quote, I use language the way I want to use it. The dictionary should change to match me and not the other way around.
Perfect. That says it all.
That's so good. I'm just picturing term papers that people are writing well, when I was on my summer vacay and we went to,
So if you spell it W-H-O-A as I do,
Bless you.
you're old.
too.
That is
Bless
the,
you.
that is the takeaway from that story.
Good sesh, guys.
Yes.
Good sesh.
That's such a dad
that a dad joke?
Yeah, see, you beat me to it. Thank you all. Bill Griffith, Leslie Picker, and Robert Frank.